2-on-2. That bomb's so far tick. They gotta move quick right now. They're going for it. The defuse is already happening. Hiko, are you kidding me? He's gonna go for it. They win the round. Hiko picks up a triple and Cloud9 win it 1.
I call one on wall and into the back. He's hit on top first. They've lost 3. They've lost 4. Into disaster. They've lost 5. Na'Vi disintegrating Tongfu.
I mean, my heart's beating, my hands are shaking.
He's thinking about it. Here it comes. Rengar's pretty close.
They're going to dive in. It was the target here of exhausted Uzi. It's on the back. They're trying to get in. But Zero's taking on the turret. He's going to go down as well. Insect low. Insect goes down. Now Uzi is just...
Oh my God.
There's a god.
Are you kidding me?
Let's keep it clean. It's a family show.
Hello again. Welcome back to the Center Ring, your professional gaming podcast. Welcome back. TCR episode 8, coming to you live, pre-recorded from an undisclosed location, rather. No one knows the whereabouts. I am Tim. The gentleman across the table from me is Brandon. Brandon, hello, how are you?
Good. You think you'd have that little intro down by now?
Look, I'm a radio professional. I do not write this thing down. It's all from the top of my head. So we just go with it. 2 months of this. Can you believe it? Can you believe we've lasted this long, that we've actually decided to commit to something in life?
Well, really, if we go by what we were planning on at the beginning and only doing a show every 2 weeks, we've really been at this for like 4 months.
This is true. When we first started the show, I think even in the very first episode, I said,
bi-weekly,
we'll be bi-weekly, and then we'll go from there and see what's up. But things have changed, and we realized, like, hey, we could probably do this weekly because there's so much. If we did this bi-weekly, we really wouldn't be able to get to everything we wanted to.
We would miss a lot of stuff, too. Yeah.
This is true. When big things in esports happen every week in every branch of esports, whatever you follow, there's always something going on. And that is no different. This week is no exception. We have tons of going on. We have CEVO Season 8, for instance. That wrapped up in Columbus, Ohio? Someplace in Ohio?
It's Columbus.
All right.
Yep.
The esports capital of America, apparently. Where
or
they will,
the cheapest place to build an arena. Thank you, MLG.
if that's what you want to call an arena. Sure. We have nip scandals across the board. It seems like every week we have to discuss ninjas in pajamas. And that is, again, the case in this week, as more scandals, more very, very troubling news breaks out from that organization.
I'm not going to say I told you so.
Yeah, you can't say that because nothing... Yes, technically, someone has left the organization, and that's their CEO. So we will discuss that here momentarily. But for now, like, what was announced this week, actually, was San Jose IEM. The brackets, we got a little bit more information out of them, so we can even dive in a little deeper as far as San Jose IEM and Counter-Strike goes. Now, I do want to say one thing before we get too far into San Jose, that I have to make a correction because I made an error in last week's episode. I was under the impression that it was the winner, or it was the best non-invite team in Kaluge got invited.
Oh, but it was I by Power? Okay.
It's the best team. It's the best non-invite team in I by Power who gets invited.
Okay. All right.
That being said, last week I said, so that means G2 will be in San Jose.
Which turned out to be true.
Meaning I am so in the know on esports that
you were wrong and you were still right.
My sixth sense, some wires got crisscrossed, and
well done.
So I was right. All in all, it wasn't an error at all. Suck it, America. I know what I'm talking about. So yes, that is very true there, where G2 is taking over Ninjas in Pajamas spot. We will get to that here after we discuss kind of the bracket breakdown and everything in San Jose. But as far as it's a single elimination tournament, it's a best of 3, which typically favors the more veteran, experienced teams there because you can afford to drop one or, go from there.
Well, you saw VP. Yeah, you drop one and then you get on a roll. So
yep, it's really not that big a deal there. But as far as the talent, you said it before the show. Before we started today, you said that's actually shaping up to be a pretty intense lineup, especially the way things have started to kind of unravel in these latest tournaments.
Yeah, if you look at the bracket, do we want to go ahead and go through all the teams real quick?
Yeah, run through it. You have them all in front of you.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the bracket, the first game you're going to have is Na'Vi and Luminosity. Luminosity has, for whatever reason, decided, they've always been pretty good, but they've decided hey, we're tired of playing with the little guys down in tier 2.
They toggled is what it was.
Yeah.
They turned on those wall hacks and just decided to.
So yeah, Luminosity and Na'Vi, going to be a good game. TSM and Cloud9. Cloud9, you look at this and they are the weakest team in the bracket. And
by
going
far,
up against,
really, I'd say.
And you're going up against TSM, which is, that's not a joke of a squad either. Next, you got VP and G2, which we saw a preview of G2's ability at Cluj. So that's going to be a nice matchup too. And then Team Envious and the iBuyPower winner, whoever, the non-invite team from iBuyPower. So, this tournament is, that's major competition right there.
It's definitely shaping up there, especially since it is such a small pool of teams there, and it's only going to be spanning over just a few days. The only thing that the way these brackets kind of shape up, and I almost wonder, clearly I think it's all done on purpose. I can't imagine these are...
Apparently this was done by live draw. I'm just saying, I didn't watch it. And if you look on IEM's website, they said it was a live draw. I didn't watch it, and I couldn't find any reference to the bracket on IEM's website, so I'm not even sure what to believe from them.
The only reason maybe I can believe that just from a spectator's point of view, because all in all, if you look here, so VP is playing G2 and Envious is playing the iBuyPower winner. Well, the bracket that they written up, if things don't change, they're going to play each other the second round, right? Because VP, although G2 has been performing way over their expectations at Collusion and everything lately, I don't think VP is going to lose to them. So you're going to have VP and Envious being a second round matchup. Those are the two top favorites in this going at it.
Yeah, you're kind of surprised not to see those two split up between the two bracket sides. If Luminosity has a chance to make it out of there.
Oh, well, I think, I could easily see Luminosity defeating Na'Vi. TSM, obviously, I think is going to take Cloud9. My stance on Cloud9, just not preparing for teams or tournaments the way they should, still stands.
We've seen them play. They can play a best of 1 pretty well. You put them in a best of 3, and they just they don't have the mental fortitude to make it through 3 games.
I just think when you hear the big talking heads of CSGO talking about the top tier teams and how all of them have their own unique play style, or VP, how they, dominate on train, even though they've started to lose on train a little bit. All these pro teams kind of have their own little niche or image that sets them apart. And for some reason, Cloud9 is still in discussion of being a top team.
Well, they had the 3 majors at the beginning that were they did really well.
But I think it also helps that as far as an American scene goes, there was no competition at the time.
Well, there was the iBuyPower guys, but they got banned.
And now you're starting to get, Luminosity, which is, south.
If
that's south of the border, but I'll take it. It's on this side of the globe.
They call Luminosity the American team. It's like the United States is trying really hard to hold on to that American
aspect. I'll take it. They might be from Brazil, but hey, that's right below us, right? skip Mexico, and there they are.
Count it.
We're like best friends. And then you have Liquid, who is, again, very sour taste in their mouth when they didn't get an invite to this. My defense to that is at the time you were not relevant when invites were going out.
And based on the major and
right, like
CEVO, you're still not relevant.
Right. So what, you're going to complain that any of these teams got invited over you? Because Hiko was the one saying, like, I can't believe that we weren't invited.
Their co-owner was the one that tweeted out about being better over the last little while. But I mean, you get bounced in CEVO LAN finals and you don't even win a game in groups, I think.
No, and I don't want to get too far into that, but that's right. So they got bounced in CEVO. So I think this is a promising lineup. I honestly think the only reason C9 is there is either teams like Fnatic said no, or because it is going to be one of the larger CSGO tournaments on American soil.
That's why.
They have to have them, right?
That's why.
Like, there's no way you could have one of the larger American tournaments in CSGO history and not include the biggest American esports organization.
And just to talk about Liquid, you brought Liquid up. The iBuyPower Cup groups weren't like really officially announced, but WinterFox posted them up and you could figure out what they are from what they posted. Liquid could place as low as like third place and still get an invite to this. Group A for iBuyPower is Luminosity, WinterFox, CLG, and Renegades. And Group 1. Group 2 is Liquid, Cloud9, Complexity, and Conquest. So, I mean, you've got Luminosity and C9 kind of a holdover from the already announced bracket. So they could place as low as third and still get an invite. Unless
Conquest decides to carry over some CEVO.
Unless Shazam decides to show up like he did. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, again, I don't want to get too far into the teams that performed at CEVO, but there are definitely storylines developing there, and hopefully it doesn't end there. Now, I don't think with, like how you were saying, iBuyPower, I'd love to see Renegades go through. Really, they're a fan favorite and everybody loves them. But also at the same time, they moved to the States so they could partake in more tournaments just because there wasn't enough love in the pro scene for Australia, which, get over it. So I would love to see them kind of...
That's what I was actually just thinking about that. This is the first time I've seen their name come up since the TBS announcement to do a CSGO TV tournament. And Renegades, I think Renegades is still the only team that's been announced as for sure doing the TBS stuff. This is going to be their first LAN since moving over here, isn't it?
Yeah, they've been... maybe first LAN that's relevant.
Right, okay. They may have done some stuff, but this is going to be the first big tournament. Okay.
I would be lying to you if I said I kept up with Renegade's schedule on a day-to-day basis.
Yep, I feel that.
But I feel like they've been irrelevant for long enough and maybe now make some noise on the American soil. So we'll see there. Again, either way, if they do make it through, the poor souls that win iBuyPower, or I'm sorry, not necessarily win, but move on.
Yeah, whoever gets invited from iBuyPower.
Whoever qualifies from iBuyPower has to play Envious, and that's not going to end well for anyone.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't invited here in the first place, chances are you probably weren't invited for a reason. So, unless you're G2 who weren't invited and now you're in there. Because NIP's fiasco that they just can't seem to just let go away. It's either tax evasion or not paying players, and now this, their CEO steps down.
Yeah, G2 definitely has officially benefited off of, I mean, you hate to see a team that's so good and has been so good for so long suffer from stuff like this. Like, you would think, like, if there's somebody in esports that's better than this, it would be a team like NIP. And, like, can you play the audio for us real quick just to kind of intro to what we're about to talk about?
Yeah, so here's some audio of Richard Lewis kind of introducing this whole NIP's organization just not treating the players right.
You know, this is demonstrably proven. Well, you know, if you treat people bad and then expect them to work hard, expect them to deliver high quality results, you know, it just never happens.
So that's Richard Lewis on his By the Numbers podcast with Thorne, talking about NIP not paying their players. And at first you're like, okay, yeah, I understand. Until you realize that right now they're owed about $16,000 a piece. From the last report, $16,000 a piece. And it was as high as $340,000 for the whole team. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money and a lot of, I guess reasons on why you see Nip kind of underperform or do goofy things or quote unquote not have their head in the game in some of these matches and everything where people are like, man, these guys just don't seem to care.
That's why.
It was probably because they didn't care.
Yeah, Thorne brought up a good point about how you still want to be a good player, and that whole argument about players are there to compete, but it is a whole mental aspect in my opinion of if you're worried about something like that, you're not really worried about what's going on in the game as much. Nip released this big story and like press release on it the day after, and pretty much followed exactly what Richard Lewis said was going to happen.
And you can't really read, though. I read some of that press release, and I actually stopped midway through because it was so sugar-coated in corporate language, where they really were like, how do you say they're okay? Well, let's go through this. Their old CEO is
Per Lillyfelth.
Their interim CEO is
Patrick Johnson, and
their expected new CEO after the new year, Haram Kaheen?
No,
I don't.
Hisham Kaheen? Shaheen? Yeah.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. He's the owner of DigiLife, which is a company that invested in Nip and got him out of their original.
And they're expected to make him CEO once, I guess, the board votes for all of this.
Yeah, that's supposed to happen in the first half of 2016.
Right. So all that being said,
after this story broke, they released a press release and were like, none of this is happening. He has no idea what he's talking about. He being Richard Lewis, no idea what he's talking about. Players came out on Twitter and, said, oh, we've been paid. We've all sat down and talked. But I mean, you've got people that used to coach for Nip that were saying, they offered to help Nip deal with this and they said no. You have players talking, or you have them talking about that Nip wasn't even keeping track of when they were paying out to their players. There was supposed to be a Google Doc spreadsheet that.
Very official.
First off, yeah, Google Docs. Come on, you don't have an accounting software to do this for you, when you're paying your players their salaries and winnings and stuff. Anyway, 2 days later, cue it. The CEO steps down. That's Per Lillyfelth steps down. And if you read, did you read the press release for when he stepped down?
That's the one I was talking about, where I stopped about halfway through because the press release just made it seem like he was just so heartbroken. The Nip organization wouldn't be here until it was him, and
you have to get through 2.5 paragraphs for them to actually say anything other than Nip is growing so fast.
Exactly.
It was the same sentence.
That's what
over
I'm
and
saying.
over.
And then it was a quick little sentence of, and CEO is stepping down and we're going to move on.
Yeah. No and in there, it says, though some of the allegations may have been true, not all of them were.
Yeah. Okay. So not all of them are true. Just enough to make the guy feel like, man, I need to get the F out of Dodge.
Yeah, before it became even worse.
So guys, don't worry. Not all of these are true, but enough to make me feel like I need to quit my organization. So which ones do you want to admit are true? Because okay, some might be true, but if the worst are true, then isn't that really?
Yeah, and
it seems Richard Lewis, so far everything that Richard Lewis has called him out on has been pretty true.
Yeah, well, and he says in during his By the Numbers podcast, which we'll put in the show notes, that this wasn't even the whole story. This was some bad stuff, but he's it gets it's even worse than what I'm not even telling you everything that's going on. But I mean, it even got down to Nips telling the players that MLG wasn't paying out, and the players withdrew from the CEVO 7 finals. Back in the last season of CEVO. Because they thought MLG wasn't paying out prize money.
Right. So Nip kind of said, hey, guys, we want to pay you, but they're not paying us to pay you.
Right. So
which
the
is a
players
classic move.
And players
blame, the higher ups.
So the players say, well, we're not going to go play CEVO 7. That's prize money. And that's the stuff that the players get. The prize money is the players. I'm sure the organization gets a small cut depending on whatever the contract is.
Yeah, however that works.
But the play, that's how they make their, the most of their salary is through the tournament winnings. And so now they're backing out of tournaments because their organization is telling them they're not paying us, so we can't pay you.
And also which is kind of a newer thing, I think. I don't think they've always made money off of sticker sales, if there's a big major and then Valve sells the stickers so you can do the pick'em leagues on Counter-Strike.
As far as I know, the signatures, I think they've always made money on that.
That's when they've started it, though, and that's only been starting since last Katowice, I think.
Yeah.
So it's only been 2 majors that they started doing those signature things. I don't recall them ever making it a big deal that they made money off of those stickers.
Yeah.
Could be wrong on that.
So
don't bother fact checking me. So with that though, the NIP also made the excuse of, well, hey, we're paying them everything that they deserve to get paid. They're getting their winnings. The sticker prices, however, we're withholding because the players themselves aren't holding up to their part of their contract where they would at least stream 50 hours a week. However, that's split up between the 5 of them. We don't care. We just want 50 hours. So if Get Right wants to play 40, that's fine.
But I've actually never seen any of them streaming. I've never really looked, but I've never seen any of them streaming either.
Well, and even in Richard Lewis's article that he posted, he mentioned that, these guys are busy, that they have whatever, but I guess that's even lenient on compared to other contracts that have this streaming requirement. That being said, so they need 50 hours between
5 guys.
5 guys who play video games for a living, who probably live in a house with all of that right there at their disposal at any time. I'm not saying NIP is right for withholding money, and especially if it's the amount, okay, I get it. They're not living up to their contract, but you're going to withhold $16,000 from these guys? That's a bit harsh.
There's got to be a certain clause in there. I'm sure it's not like we can withhold all your salary if you don't. But
at the same time, you can't find 50 hours a week between 10 guys to stream the game that you play.
And in my opinion, it also depends on what happens first. Is it they weren't getting paid, so they stopped streaming, or they had never been streaming, so they stopped getting paid?
Right. And I can see where kind of the disgruntled employee, where the reason you're disgruntled is probably because your job, and I'm not saying this is the case at all, because I don't think it was. I mean, NIP it's a top 5, sometimes top 6 team in the world. So
they never dropped that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is the case, but it's kind of like if you're a disgruntled employee where you're mad at management because they're punishing you for sucking at your job, so you decide to suck more at your job. It's like a vicious cycle that just keeps building up.
Yeah.
And I feel like where some of NIP's attitudes been, it's almost like now that this is all being, unraveled, you can kind of, as talking heads, our job is to speculate and maybe connect the dots to where they don't necessarily belong, but maybe make sense to us. And to me, that's where it makes sense. I mean, we said here, they withdrew from San Jose just this week, and G2 took their spot. And originally it was because they didn't want to leave home. They were tired of the traveling and they wanted to stay home.
Yeah, they said, and it was curious that it happened so suddenly when that story released, and then you had Get Right.
Well, what came first? I see, because I heard that they withdrew first. Whether or not that's how they actually broke, I don't know. I heard that they withdrew from the tournament, and then it was the next day the CEO stepped down. Either way, it could very well be that the reason they withdrew from the tournament is because in CEO fiascos, they were like, guys, we can't fly you out to America and have you stay there for a week.
It looks like them withdrawing happened on November 5th. And I think
the CEO stepped down on the 7th or something. It was only a couple days afterwards, I think.
Yeah, the CEO stepped down just shortly, a couple days ago, 2 days ago. And
okay, well, regardless then of the timeline though, because either way, it all happened in rapid pace from one another.
All right, so they withdrew on the 5th. The story was originally posted on the 3rd, and then the CEO got announced stepping down on the 8th. So you're looking at a span of 5 days of all of that happening at once. And Get Right's tweet was that it had nothing to do with the story that just broke. Which
there is not a chance. It had nothing to do with it.
Even if it's like, man, we're not getting paid, I don't really feel like leaving home. Like, that still has to do with the story.
Even if it's like, guys, look, I just don't feel like it. We're going to go out there. Even if we win, we're not going to see this money for another 6 months, because I have heard that sometimes is the case where, and here's the thing. So with these payout checks, and this is my speculation, no idea. I've never won a LAN tournament to get a payout check before to see how this works. Those checks are written out to the organizations. They're not written out to the players.
Right.
They're written out to the organization who pays the entry fees for the players. So that money is going to them. Those players are not seeing this check the next day, I don't think.
No. And word on the street is it takes anywhere from like 3 to like 7 to 9 days to get payment from some of these lands if they decide to pay out. Because we've obviously seen examples of tournaments deciding that they don't want to pay their players anyway. And Richard Lewis makes the point of that the payments should go directly to the players. And I kind of agree with them. I mean, I understand that there could be contractual things where, the organizations are responsible for certain, especially if it's something like just paying for their entry fee, like that comes out of their tournament winnings. But I have always been skeptical of big organizations, and I don't want to see my money pass through them before it gets to me, even if I know exactly what the prize pool is going to be.
So are we holding then some of these tournament holders responsible? Like, would you be holding MLG responsible for, not taking care of the players?
No, you can't really put that on MLG, because I mean, even if it's like that's just the de facto way it's always happened. I mean, I'm sure it's also, I'm sure, a lot easier to get an organization's paperwork and pay out, like, if you won $40,000 for first place, to pay out $40,000 to an organization with one set of tax than it is to say, each person gets, I can't even do the math of 40 divided by 5, 8,000 a person or whatever it is.
You could literally say any number right now, and I believe you.
I'm pretty sure it's 8. Instead of like them having to try and figure out how to pay 8,000, and and then it becomes even tax reasons. Like, if you pay $8,000 out to a player, is that is the tax is different than paying $40,000 out to an organization as a business to business transaction instead of a business to an individual. So I can see. You can't really hold the tournament organizers, which puts you in a tough spot as far as who's paying who. If I had my way, you would just have an organization that treats people right. But I just don't know if you're ever going to have that.
Well, look, okay, I think you will, but I think it's only going to happen once the public starts paying more attention to esports. And when I say public, I mean the general public. Once they start treating it as an actual business and a way to make a living.
Right.
Because a lot of these people, and when I say people, I mean even friends that I know in real life, that they just feel like all of this is a joke. Like, even if you win and you're complaining that you didn't just make your, $10,000 reward for winning this tournament, they still almost like laugh at the fact that you're complaining that you didn't get paid to play a video game, which that is completely off base, because it's like, it has nothing to do, take video games out of this, right? So what if NIP was an actual just company and the players were their employees? The players are doing their job. They're producing, the product and everything, and the company is not giving them their money. Take tournament winnings aside, take sticker prices aside. Their employees are working and the employer is not paying. Would you work for a place or have an attitude for a place that when you went in there, they were like, hey, so I know you were supposed to get your money now, but it's going to be like delayed and it might not be as much as you thought it was going to. But that's because I know you're doing a lot, but I mean, you left work like 5 minutes early every day this week, so we're going to withhold all this money from you. But we'll pay you some, but not all of it.
I worked, you remember in high school, I worked at Marble Slab.
Those high school mom and pop shops, definitely.
That happens. Like, that happened to me, was like, they decided that they didn't want to pay me for a week's worth of work because I'd quit, and then the week before I quit, I had only worked like half of my shifts or something, and it was like tooth and nail to get that half a shift paid. Like, she was just not going to pay me anything. It's infuriating.
And now maximize that to this, where this is these guys living, and we're talking thousands of dollars. I mean, like how you said, like dating back to January of this year, it almost piles up to be around 340,000 supposedly.
That was the maximum number they were owed. And I mean, it's been shrinking because I guess they've been getting payouts. But yeah, I don't know how you could perform, especially at the highest level that these guys are asked to perform at every night
and
that they're playing.
Props to the players for not completely throwing their organization under the bus throughout all this, because
it's going to be interesting to see what happens come December.
All the reports are saying this is true, but all the players and everybody else in the organization is saying, no, it's not true. Like, forget it. Things aren't perfect here, but we're getting it under control, and the players are aware of this, and it's okay. We'll survive through all this. But props for them just not being like, man, this is some bullshit, and we're out of here. Like, we are not playing in any more tournaments until you get this right. Maybe that's in fear of being blacklisted from any other organization, because that's how the world works, right?
That is the scary part.
Whistleblowers get punished in this life.
They're already working. All the teams are already working together with that team association stuff about minimum payouts for tournaments and stuff like that. And like those are all the top organizations. If you want to play for a top team after this, you probably don't want to like tick anybody off.
You have to play ball, as they say. Get with it. You have to be one of us, and in order to do that, not bad mouthing or making esports look bad is the one way to do it. And again, all speculation. I don't think that's what's happening behind closed doors, but you just never know with the way all this news from, NIP just trickles down of, players are leaving. No, they're not. They're going to stay until December. Well, now they're not getting paid. No, they're getting paid. It's just a weird situation. We'll move on. And the CEO is now stepping down, which can only tell me either maybe he was the problem, right?
I was kind of thinking about this.
Maybe we're all looking at this the wrong way. We're blaming NIP when maybe we really should be blaming, per Lily Felth.
With that kind of name. I don't know. I really think that, especially with him stepping down, it's put a lot of eyes on this as far as like what's actually happening. And unfortunately, him stepping down, even if it was for even if he just like, I want to go spend more time with my family, which I'm sure is not the situation that we have. You can't step down 2 days after news like this breaks and not look guilty.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I mean, at least wait maybe a week or something.
Yeah, it's wait a month and then come up with a really good excuse.
Maybe wait till December, like you're telling everybody else is going to happen. Like, just wait until the end of December, and then things are going to change. But no, who knows? Maybe everything will be blown up. But you still think, despite all this, the team is going to break up at the end of the year?
In my opinion, the only player that's going to be left at the end of the year is Get Right. I think he's the only one that stays.
I think they're going to stay in NIP because the new CEO knows what butters his bread, and that is the players. That is the team that everybody loves.
Man, I couldn't do it. Like if I had my an employer that withheld payment, even if it's a new owner, I would have such discontent with it. I couldn't stay.
Can you imagine though? They're gonna kiss their ass so much now though.
But these guys are so good. They can go to any team and get their asses kissed.
And you know what? we keep saying get right and all that. This is not just Counter-Strike, though. This is NIP's. NIP is a multi-game organization. They have teams in a bunch of different games where all of this is happening. The only difference maker is across the board, their Counter-Strike team is basically what is keeping the company
It's what's known.
Yeah, that is what's making the company money. So again, that's another reason why I think they are just going to throw everything at these guys to say, sorry, will you please stick around? It's not going to be the same.
Do you think they'll get no streaming hours required on their next contracts?
I mean, I guess. I don't understand what's the big... I mean, you're a professional gamer. Just
just turn your stream on while you're practicing, right?
Yeah, or just play it while you're goofing around, you know? There's five of you in there all the time. You can't find a different game just to play for 50 hours.
I swear, Hiko streams with like the same 3 or 4 people every single morning.
Right. So what's the big deal of just going and mess around on some pubs? Just do it. It's 50 hours. Make your sticker money.
All right. Let's let the NIP talk settle until December, and then we can come back and revisit why I was right.
Until next week, until something else happens with NIP.
Until a new story breaks.
But you know what? NIP had to find their way in the news somehow because they were not at CEVO Season 8 land finale in Columbus, Ohio, which was probably their dream spot.
Who doesn't love going to Columbus?
Do you know how upset they were that they didn't get to go to Columbus, Ohio?
How upset were they?
I mean, that's...
something, or I thought that was a joke.
No, who is upset that they don't get to go to Columbus, Ohio? Nobody.
LeBron?
Nobody. That is who. He's from Cleveland.
Cleveland, no. Yeah, well, maybe he likes
embarrass
Columbus.
yourself. So CEVO Season 8 finals happened there. It was CEVO also kind of being hand-in-hand with MLG. I don't know who pays the bills at these events, if it's MLG, if it's CEVO, or...
I'm sure CEVO contracts out their arena thing there.
Yeah, I don't really know how all that works out as far as that goes. Some comments here just for my notes, and then if you want, we can... Well, what would you want to do? Do you want to talk about normal thoughts on it first, and then get into the breakdown of the teams?
Yeah, let's get our thoughts on as a whole. What did you think about CEVO LAN Finals? What was your takeaway?
I thought it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, where you had Virtus Pro, arguably number 1, number 2 in the world, depending on how they want to play that day, up against minus Navi, some tier 2, some tier 3 teams.
You want to hear? Virtus Pro dropped 1 match the entire tournament to Dignitas
On train.
Yep.
Nonetheless,
they won every other match. Not like round or game, every other match.
I think I don't know how Virtus Pro always gets into these tournaments.
We talked about this, and I feel like they just they will play anything they qualify for, because they went to Australia to go beat up on those poor Aussies at the Melbourne Championship or Melbourne Cup Invitational or something.
And that got very little, I feel, coverage.
Almost none.
Doesn't help that it was in Australia, so
yeah,
those viewing times are horrendous for everybody. But VP always finds their ways in these tournaments, and even for a little bit there, I thought San Jose was another one, but clearly every team has gotten a little better on that front.
I actually, just out of curiosity, so VP took $40,000 home, and I decided to look at the esports earnings website, which is like it basically has how much teams are making off of or how much the players on each team are making from their tournament winnings. It doesn't have any salaries or sticker monies or anything like that.
It's basically what we know.
Just tournament winnings from what people find on the internet or what people have found on the internet.
Right.
And VP have now jumped to number 11 overall with $2.6 million. Their Counter-Strike team has made $729,000 over the lifespan of Counter-Strike Go with that $40,000. And all 5 of the players with those tournament winnings have now jumped into the top 10 of earners for VP ever. They've all made over $140,000 just in tournament winnings.
Not bad.
And that's why they go to every tournament.
And that is only going up. Yeah, but they're also very selective, I feel. Well, I lie. I take that back. They're selective on what they do in between those tournaments.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you'll see other teams kind of play in between tournaments, but Virtus Pro, like, in between tournaments is just practicing on strats and everything, and then they'll perform in tournaments. That's where they play. They do very little in between, or at least to public knowledge, in between tournaments. Now, I did see, Thorne and Richard Lewis, again, were the commentators for this. They were, again...
It's actually it was like half of the major... It was Sir Scoots, Thorne, and Richard Lewis on the analyst desk. And then I think Red Eye was... I don't know if he was doing interviews or not.
They were all... The color analysts were kind of rotating for interviews. And I get that people on Reddit, which take it for a grain of salt because the Reddit is the vocal minority that's going to complain about everything and then put on their knee pads. But I think they were right in the sense of, like, there was some shoddy commentating going on. But to me, I'll give a break for that just because I feel like as esports needing to grow, we need more than just Richard Lewis and Thorne being the talking heads. We need more than Anders being play-by-play. Like, every tournament cannot have the same group of people, because then what you get out of that is a monopoly of opinions and thoughts.
That's a really good point.
Everybody just literally repeats what all of them say. You go and ask people's opinions and everything. We discuss this, women, like, and we're probably going to discuss this next episode, but women in esports, women in sports has always been a hot topic about, since the dawn of time. All of a sudden, though, Thorne and Richard Lewis bring it up, and all of a sudden you look on every esports forum out there, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe women are being mistreated. Like, seriously, you can't believe that women are getting the short end? And the reason this is, I feel, is like we have a monopoly of thought and opinion in esports because you constantly get the same recycled 10 group of guys. I will say, I don't want us to, like, sound like we're discounting what they've done, because they've been around for a long time and they've kind of, Anders is my bae.
Anders is really good at his job.
Like, I could listen to him. Like, I think out of books on audio.
I think out of all, like, the major casting teams, and, like, this goes for pretty much every tournament I've ever seen, Anders is the only one that I have absolutely no qualms with whatsoever. I could listen to him do it every time. But
I just want variety. That's all I want.
And these guys got to get their shots somewhere. So why not a Columbus, Ohio?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying they should say no if they're getting the job offers. That's great. I'm just give me some variety.
Yeah, I'd rather MLG give them a chance than, like, because like you said, there were some issues with it, and I'd rather see that at, like, CEVO than I would at, like, Cluj, like a major. So
right. Other than that, I mean, they had awesome points and everything in there, and I understand it was a job to try to, like, make analysis out of VP playing mouse and completely dominating them in the finals. But at the same time, they were trying to, like, and everyone even on, like, forums and everything were saying, like, oh, well, VP did this wrong, or, well, VP needs to work on their vetoing. That was the issue. They didn't veto the correct maps. They played up to, their weaknesses and not to their strengths and blah blah blah. No, what Mouse's fault is they got stuck playing VP. Right? I mean, you have Virtus Pro playing mouse sports. What did you expect to happen there? Did anyone really expect mouse sports to surprise? And
I'm not sure you can expect them to surprise, but you would expect them to at least, like, put up a fight. I mean, it was a best of 5, right? Yeah, best of 5 for the round 2.
Best of 5.
And you didn't even take a single map on that.
You're also talking about a team that didn't make it out of groups in Cluj. They made it to finals at.
I mean, I guess they played. They played Luminosity. So Mouse is trail to the finals was through Na'Vi, Luminosity, and Conquest. So I mean, they played some hot teams at the time. Not necessarily VP's level of domination.
Right. Yeah, hot team is a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to say about Luminosity. They've been on fire. Na'Vi is Na'Vi, but they could also... I think saying Na'Vi is either, wow, they dominated or they lost. So I mean,
Na'Vi actually went out in round 1.
Right. So, I mean, Na'Vi can go one or two ways there. And then Conquest, again, being a hot team at this tournament, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say, I wouldn't, if I was Mouse Sports, I would not, pat myself on the back for beating Conquest. You were expected to beat Conquest. Yeah. Luminosity, after, collusion, everything there, probably had some more bragging rights. Beating Na'Vi, that's also very, very good for them. And I actually have high thoughts of Mouse Sports. I don't have high thoughts of Mouse Sports, though, playing VP in a best of 5.
So you're saying Mouse is kind of a top tier 2 team? Kind of bottom, tier 1, basement, tier 1?
Well, so here's the thing. How many teams do you consider in a tier?
I guess when I think of tier 1, I think of like...
Top 5,
like big
right?
names. Yeah, like you got VP, Envious, TSM, Fnatic.
I would almost
I'm not going to say NIT because you will throw it in my face, though. So.
I will almost consider Na'Vi being the bottom of tier 1.
There you go. Okay, that makes sense.
With G2 being like tier 2. Just because, yeah, they've been playing great right now, but it's G2. So I'm going to give them kind of top ranking tier 2 if I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Maybe I'll need to write an article if I decide to ever write something in my life.
There you go. Team, let's go ahead and jump on the North American teams. Team Conquest, great job. Team Liquid, awful job.
Did you see, though, the tweets from Hiko?
I did not see Hiko's tweets. I don't even want to look at Hiko.
He is tweeting out what I wish Cloud9 would tweet out after they lost. Like, man, he basically said, like, I am disgusted with those results. Because they lost, right? They didn't win.
They didn't win they did not win a match.
Right.
They got 2-0'd by Dignitas and then 2-0'd by Conquest.
And that's not...
Do you think Hiko's the only one on that team that really cares what happens? Because, I mean, he seems like the only person that seems to kind of speak up about performances. Or is he just the one more comfortable doing it?
I was going to say, I think Hiko is just... Look, when you go into a locker room, there's always that one player that people are going to gravitate to because he's the voice of the team, and I think Hiko is that guy. Right. I mean, in Hiko's downtime from playing competitively, he was... an analyst. He was one of those talking heads that we were talking about earlier. So I think people are comfortable. I mean, he knows these guys on a different level. And when I say these guys, I mean media. He kind of understands the way they work. So I think that's just, he draws the short straw when it comes to getting asked the questions. But he tweeted out saying, I'm disgusted with the way that we perform. That's not acceptable. That's not how Liquid should be doing. We're going to get home. We're going to practice religiously, and then we'll come back and perform for iBuyPower, which is coming up here in just a few weeks.
Which is kind of, I mean, after their performance at the major, and now this, like they need to show up quickly.
iBuyPower is definitely where I think they are going to have to show up, especially with the competition at iBuyPower being in their favor, I'd say. I mean, yeah, you do have some of the hot teams at iBuyPower.
Yeah,
but a lot of those hot teams, I mean...
And this is your chance to kind of solidify yourself as a top American team, too, especially with the lineup that's coming in. It's all kind of the big hitters from North America and South America.
Our brethren from the South there. Yeah. So but that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see from these guys who are losing, to come in there and say, this is unacceptable. We'll be back next time. We're going to practice. Not... Hey guys, look at us playing on these virtual headsets. This is really cool. So, and that's what happens that's the difference, I feel like, with Cloud9 and Liquid, as far as that mental preparation, that they are fully aware that they should be playing.
Or that desire to win. Like the drive.
They think of themselves as a better team than, going 0-4 in the last of their big tournaments here. But, that being said, give credit where credit is due with Conquest, because no one thought they were going to do anything here. And yet, even me, and I even tweeted out saying, like, because one of the I think it was Red Eye said, like, Conquest, American's last hope. And I just thought to myself, I was like, I thought it'd be a cold day in hell before I ever thought, man, I can't, like, Conquest has to win this. Like, I want them to win, because they were so irrelevant for so long, and maybe these smaller tournaments is where they're going to earn their chops as far as being a legitimate team. But, Shazam went off, which is easily one of the bigger players on Conquest who needs to perform.
He's the big player on Conquest. He played out of his mind through the first groups up until through the playoff bracket. So,
and even here, I have here some of his stats here. He went positive 32 for a kill to death ratio. That is insane. He went off. He had that crazy, which I'm sure you saw because it was against Liquid, the 1v5 clutch ace on Cobble on the B site.
With the op?
Yes.
Yeah, I did see that.
It was unreal.
I watched that, yeah.
Not only did he have an ace, which, for those who don't know, an ace is getting, you killed the entire team. 5 kills in 1 round. But then he clutched it. It was 5 against 1 on B site. They were all they were all there on the edge there. It's just,
I wish the first 2 kills were seconds apart.
I'm literally speechless on this. Apart from the shoddy camera work that was not on Shazam the whole time on a 5v1, which it's a 5v1. Why don't you have it on the one dude? But that's my production tip for them. But he ended up, I think it was killing 2, and then he planted the bomb. Just awful play by Liquid. Like, I don't even know. I wish they had their mics potted up to where we could hear.
There was supposed to be something like that.
Well, a lot of pros don't like that.
Well, I can't blame them, because
if I were to ESL majors used to have it to where they're like, oh, now let's dive in to hear what the players are saying. And a lot of pros are like, no.
I say some pretty rough stuff when I'm like,
and they probably don't care about that. But that is straight up like you are listening to their strats
as they're happening.
Yeah, you can watch film and everything, but I don't want you hearing my call outs and saying, hey guys, let's do this and let's do that. So a lot of players, I think, kind of vetoed that idea, and that's why you see less and less of that.
Mm-hmm.
But just for the sake of knowing what was going, it's a 5v1. After he killed 2, I think the next 3 should probably either just YOLO rush him or be like, you know what, we don't need this right now.
Well, the last 2 alive they went different directions for some reason. I think they were trying to, he got the bomb plant, Shazam got the bomb plant, and then they went different directions, I guess, to try and sandwich him instead of a crossfire. But when they did that, they did it so slow that Shazam was just able to bounce back and forth and get them both.
It was one of the most beautiful plays by Shazam and the ugliest play all at the same time because of Liquid.
Yeah.
And really, that's what makes it amazing. And then, this tournament, the way they performed, where the crowd was going, albeit a small crowd because of the way the venue is set up, was going crazy
the whole time.
For Conquest. Yeah. American team on American soil. I'm glad they at least showed up and did that. I will say, before we move on from CEVO, I do want to say my thoughts on the crowd. But before we get to them, I do think Conquest has a new outlook as far as the iBuyPower tournament goes, where I don't think anyone was really giving them any hope in doing anything there. But I think this performance, at least I'm interested anyways. I want to watch their games now for iBuyPower. The other bigger team at CEVO was Titan, who made it to semifinals, albeit
2-0'd by
not the same semifinals that you would, you probably prefer semifinals at a major Cluj style than.
Yeah, well, and the semifinals that they made it to, they didn't exactly have. They didn't really play anybody too crazy. They played Navi, I guess, is like the top team that they played.
Yeah, Navi and Luminosity, who also, though, we just said lost to Mouse, so
but
take everything with a
ended
grain
up getting
of salt.
2-0, and I actually found a stat that kind of explains why they lost in the semis. Scream only had a 70% headshot rating, which is
not acceptable.
Which is really unacceptable for Scream.
How do you expect to win with 70% headshot? Maybe,
it's nowhere near that
90,
95 that we were expecting.
But isn't that, Scream, isn't that, as far as Scream goes, would you rather him just take the shots? Because his KD is still good. I don't know what it was off the top of my head, but it's not like he's only going for headshots and not trying to spray down people. The dude is just a beast when it comes to getting the head. Now, those Shocks did take over in-game leader role in this tournament. They did try mixing that up, give Existence a break from that. Giving him a break from that play calling role didn't really help Existence in the end when he ended the tournament with a minus 66 KD.
You're joking.
Look, Titan.
There's your problem right there.
If you want someone to go minus 66 in a tournament, I can do that.
Call me.
I could go maybe minus 65. I could perform better than that.
Like, and I can see what facilitated that move. I mean, when you add Scream, who kind of admittedly kind of fits the same type of player that Shocks is, which is that really good high fragger and everything, I can see why they thought, shifting Shocks to the more leader role where he could kind of focus on something else. But if you're going to have a guy like Existence that's already doing awful, you might as well have him at least helping the rest of the team do better.
So we'll see. Everyone's saying that if someone's going to leave Titan, it's going to be him next.
I mean, and RPK showed up for the tournament as far as I know. He was doing pretty well, which is usually one of the other bottom fraggers on that team.
Yeah, so take that for what it is for Titan, I guess. They made it to semis. They did okay against teams that they were probably should have done okay on, but yet again struggling against top tier teams.
I want to bring up, speaking of Luminosity that Titan ended up eliminating, Cold Zero is playing out of his mind right now. He was ranked the second overall player on HLTV's rankings for CEVO and fifth overall player for the Cluj Major, which they kind of like, that was like their coming out party where they, immensely overperformed.
Right.
The dude has a 75% success rate in opening duels. So like, when he's the first one to see somebody, he's 75% of the time going to get the kill. And you're immediately up 5v4.
And that's, to me, open fragging is one of the most important things when it comes to having an advantage. I know that sounds very Captain Obvious of me.
Well, you've got
but if you can get that open frag in the first 15 seconds of the round, it could just make the biggest difference as far as morale goes. You're putting, the OS thoughts in the back of the other team's head saying, well, this completely ruins anything that we had going. The open frag is priceless.
You're no longer reacting to anything. Everybody's trying to react to what y'all are doing at that point. So you get to dictate the pace and what's happening in the game. I totally agree. And that's kind of where Cold Zero is just, I think he's really the key for Luminosity's success of these last two tournaments is how well he's been playing and how well he's been doing that.
Right, exactly. And let's move on here just because we are running a little long on time. As far as the crowd goes, I know at the start of the tournament, everyone was saying like, man, these crowds is going insane. They're lifting chairs and there's a mosh pit and man, this is embarrassing for Cluj and blah, blah, blah. We discussed it. We both agreed. Production has so much to do with the outlook on this kind of stuff. It is a very much enclosed area compared to Cluj. Cluj had a lot of dead space, almost like a too big a venue for the way they had it set up.
Cluj was in an arena, like an actual event arena.
Right. I don't think the crowd mics were set up properly because, yeah, they weren't that loud. But again, when you have only like 50 people that looked like was at CEVO, those 50 people screaming into a crowd mic that sounded like was right next to them. And the way you can tell that is because when someone would clap, you can hear like a specific clap above everybody else.
Or on the stream, when one person would yell something, you could make out exactly what they said.
You could make out exactly what they said, which tells me that crowd mic must have been positioned really close to one of the sides, and the gain was, if we're talking technical, that's how mics work.
And it's in everybody's interest at that show, like MLG's interest, to get as many people to yell toward that mic as possible during the stream.
And we know this because we've been to MLG events.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how they do it. They come in and say, hey, when you see this light on, just go crazy, go ape-s. And so that's what they did. I will say, for Conquest, they were going crazy. I sent you a picture, and we can even put it up on our show notes at our website, pgn.tv/TCR. When VP and Mouse was playing in the finals, I kid you not, there had to have been like 25 people there.
If that.
And it was uncomfortably embarrassing to hear like the golf claps going on in the background just because there weren't enough people to make a solid cheering noise. It almost sounded like if your parents were cheering for you at like a little league soccer game. That's what it reminded me of.
That is going up on the show notes. That will be under the heading, the MLG crowd.
And it was almost like after VP won and they were doing like their post-game interviews and they got to like awkwardly pass the trophy around that isn't really like it's like a tiny plaque. It wasn't a trophy. I mean, I would take it, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like the Stanley Cup where it's like, what do you want them to do? Raise this little thing over their head? But you could even tell like they seemed a little awkward, like, yeah,
okay.
There's like 20 people here. Great. But even that, I will say in the post-game interview that I could not find the audio to save the life of me because CEVO and MLG do not post their stuff fast enough.
What's new?
They asked Taz, like, hey, you know, what do you, how do you feel? How do you feel about winning this? And to not quote him exactly, but he said, he was like, you know what? It's great. You know, hey, fine. We're happy we won. But he's like, winning this doesn't make up for Cluj at all. He's like, we would have much rather have came in second at Cluj than win this. It was a little awkward because it's like, yo, you just won the tournament. You're on like the stream.
CEVO down.
Can you not,
like,
you know,
dog us? Yeah.
Can you not bash us on our stream? Thanks, bro.
But that goes back to that competitive drive that you were talking about that with Liquid and that Cloud9 seems to lack. Like, he's right. If you want to be a top team, you want to perform at the top lands. And that's the major. That's not CEVO Season 8 Pro Finals, unfortunately.
Right. When, you know, he gave a lot of props to Mouse, but I think, you know, if we're being honest, I think it was a little hollow victory. I mean, they dominated them, going 3-0 in the finals. I think it was a little bit of a hollow victory, and they knew that. I think they knew winning this tournament was clearly expected of them. And hey, well, grats, you know, we won. We're happy. We'll move on, and we need to win what matters. We need to beat the top tier teams. And I think they figured that out, and obviously their next stop for top tier teams is San Jose, which oddly enough is the next big Counter-Strike tournament, and it's going to be here in the States. So we are definitely looking forward to that. Any final CEVO thoughts?
No, I do want to give a shout out to AZ with his ace on VP. He clutched around with he had 8 health after the second kill and got 4 1-deagle headshots during the ace. Anyway,
Dirty with the Wandigs.
Too easy for AZ.
That was Okay, sure. Let's move on to the micro, sir, after that comment. What do you have for us on the micro?
The first one.
The segment, for those who don't know who might be new to the show, the micro is a segment where we kind of read headlines. There's stories that kind of warrant being mentioned, but
let's be honest, there's just not enough to talk about it. Gravity announced their selling of their North American LCS spot, which we have a reference point for a European LCS spot going for almost $1 million a couple weeks ago. So they're set to make some big money, apparently.
I have here that France recognizes esports as a real sport. ... So, take that for you. So the next time your buddy says Counter-Strike isn't a real sport, League of Legends isn't a real sport, you can say, au contraire, mon frère. France accepts it now.
Well,
which
done.
Yeah, thanks.
Wow.
That's why they pay me the big bucks. That right there is going to get this show a sponsor.
There we go.
So I think, you mentioned here that really it was more so just to treat their players right, and now they can get athlete visas rather than...
Yeah, we've just had one of the teams dropped out of the Frankfurt Major for Dota 2 because one of the Chinese teams, because one of their players couldn't get a visa. And that stuff doesn't really happen for athletes. Sports are kind of well revered throughout
I think they
the globe.
Kind of get better treatment there.
Yeah.
And speaking of Frankfurt, aren't there some issues going there?
Yeah, a German airline, the largest German airline, their cabin crews have gone on strike, and it has kind of forced everybody, Valve included, into scramble mode, trying to get players to the Frankfurt Dota 2 major that's going on. I believe this weekend.
That'll be fun. Let's keep it. I do want to.
We'll see who can and can't show up. Like, there's already Twitter's going crazy about people being rerouted and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what shakes out with the Frankfurt Major as a result.
I have Cloud9 actually won the first world championship for Heroes of the Storm that was at BlizzCon, which held. It's basically the Blizzard Olympics, if you really want to think of it. They have all their games there, which soon is going to be, I'm sure, the premier Overwatch.
Yeah, I want to touch on the Heroes of the Storm stream specifically because I watched some of the Heroes of the Storm because the game's kind of interesting. One of the casters said during casting that he had no experience in a hero-related MOBA. He was employed because he used to he casted StarCraft 2. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I must have crushed it in his interview then, because that is insane. And I actually heard from other people and I guess that explains it, because I had a friend who watched it and he was like, man, this caster doesn't know what he's talking about. Like,
yeah.
Like, he was like, the caster is making me confused and I play the game.
Yeah, it's like that. And this was during like an extended technical issue pause that nothing was going on, so they were forced to kind of banter like on the stream. And yeah, he dropped a little nugget of knowledge that he has no idea what he's talking about.
Also, for the listener, do yourself a favor, since this is a audio medium and we cannot show you things. We can show you this on our site in the show notes. Blizzard is top notch for their presentation. Did you see the StarCraft 2 stage?
I did not see the StarCraft 2 stage.
You need to go and look at this because it's like the entire, so they have like the players in like their little booths, but then everything around it is like a digital board and it's constantly changing. And then also like the Hearthstone stage.
The Hearthstone stage has always been pretty awesome.
Yes, like they design it like it is like an old pub den.
Yeah, it looks like at the tavern, yeah.
Their presentation is insane, and they invest so much money to be like, you know what? If the competition's not good,
at least it's gonna look.
My
pretty.
God, this is gonna look good. So congratulations on Blizzard for putting on another successful BlizzCon there. My last thing to contribute to the micro is Armada defeats Mango at the Smash Summit. Again, Mango lost to one of those filthy Europeans, as he refers to them as. Armada actually walks away with the biggest prize for Melee in Melee history. That is including what was the biggest tournament to date, which was EVO 15, and the second one, which was, we discussed here, the Big House. So even this little tournament here, that was really a 16-man tournament that consisted of 10 invite players, and the 6 remaining were like community picked favorites saying like they should go to here. Well, those 6 never even placed in the top 8, so I guess at least they were community
happens when
picked.
you have a fan vote. Yeah,
Right.
It's a popularity contest.
So Armada walked away with a little over 11,500.
Which, at first I was like, that's it. But when you think about one person.
One person's not bad. I think.
Yeah. That's more than VP walked away with from the CEVO finals.
Right. And
this weekend.
his winnings total for this year alone taps out around 60,000, a little over 60,000. Armada, who is on a 6 game or 6 tournament winning streak. So he's making a living.
Money.
He's making a living, and like you said, it's only him doing it. There is no cuts unless contract wise with sponsors and everything, but he's doing that. Do you have anything else for the micro, sir?
That's it. Let's close it.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for listening to the show. Episode 8 of The Center Ring is in the books. Again, my name is Tim. You can follow me on Twitter at Pirate Mushroom. His name is Brandon. You can follow him on Twitter at
Brand PGN.
Excellent. You can follow the show on Twitter. It's at The Center Ring. I think you could also just search TCR and you'll find us. You could also Google, right?
Yeah, TCR podcast and TCR esports, and you can get, number 1 results.
There you go.
As long as you're really specific.
We're making it. Just make it very specific, and we're there. So tell your parents. They'll be proud.
Of course, also go to the website.
Oh, yeah. Send the website that we do have, pgn.tv. You can go there to check out a bunch of articles from our very prestigious writers that are paid, not volunteer. Unlike every other organization here in esports, we do pay our writers. You can also check out the show's site. It's pgn.tv/TCR. You can also get there from the homepage of PGN. Check out all the show notes there. If we mentioned any visual thing that you will have to look at, you don't have to Google. We set it all up for you.
Just go to the URL.
Just right there. Why Google? Why even waste your time? Go there and check out, the awesome BlizzCon stage photos or what have you. So again, that will just about do it for episode 1 of Whoa.
8.
Episode 8. 2 months in. Not episode 1. Episode 8 of The Center Ring. Thank you again for listening. We will be back next Tuesday with another fun-filled show for you here. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.